Welcome to the show, Pratha. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you too.
How are you?
I am good, bit nervous, but good.
Of course. And you're here today to talk to us about your first time getting your period.
Yes, interesting stuff.
Interesting stuff. Well, what age were you when you first got your period?
I think I was around 12 years old when I got my period, so like pretty late, I guess. Yeah.
And what happened?
Well, I think I was really excited to get my period because all my friends had gotten their periods and they were all talking about it all the time. They're like, oh yes, finally it's happened. And I was the only person going like, oh wait, this hasn't happened for me yet. And I remember being in class one day and one of my friends going, hey, I just got my period. And I was like, no way, I was supposed to get my period. And that was like one moment when I distinctly remember being like very angry about not getting my period.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And like a few months later, I guess, I was in school and I felt this icky feeling and it was so unknown to me, so I kind of just let it be. I was just like, oh, that's probably nothing. And that period ends and like I've done nothing. I'm not gone to the toilet or anything. I'm with friends, having a good time, waiting for the next class. And I stand up and there's a huge red stain on my white uniform.
Oh my no.
Which I don't know about. But all these boys are looking at me and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Am I looking cute today? Today's today. Hey.
Am I looking fertile?
Yeah. Just feeling myself. I think like 12-year-old Pratha was so confident. She was just like, yes, get it, girl.
I back that 100%.
Little did she know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so two of my friends like came running to me and they were like, Pratha, there's a big stain on your skirt. And I was like, oh my God, kind of happy but also like very embarrassed. I was like, finally it's happening, but I didn't want it to happen this way. And I remember they were like, let's go to the toilet right now, and they were following me really closely so no one else could actually see that stain.
Bless them. Yeah.
And I just went in to the toilet and I had never like used a pad or like knew how to use one, so they handed me one and they're like, you know how to do this, and I was like, yeah, of course. Of course I know. And I played with it for a second. It's like, I feel like I can imagine if you're watching a YouTube video and a girlfriend hands their boyfriend a pad and they're like, what is this?
Yeah.
It was kind of like that experience.
They're like blowing their nose into it. They're like,
Yeah. And yeah, I like played with it for a second, and then while I was doing that, my friends were buying me a new skirt because my skirt was completely ruined. And yeah, and like I don't think I got it right, but I went back home and I was like, Mom, this happened today. I'm just so embarrassed to go into class tomorrow. What's gonna happen? But her being like, it's okay, it's fine. And she sat me down and explained me everything. And she was like, it's okay. Every girl has at least one embarrassing period story. And it just happens to be your first one. And it's okay. You'll get used to it. And yeah.
Was that like the first conversation you had with your mother about periods and stuff like that, or?
It interestingly was. I was like, Mom, you could have come one day before and we would have been good. But yeah, I grew up in India.
Oh, cool.
And period still is like such a taboo conversation. There's not much education about it in schools. So mostly what I knew was through my friends, and once I had gotten my period, that's when I had a conversation with my mum, and that's when she was like, hey, this is how you use period products, and you'll probably have cramps or you'll have some symptoms before, and like come to me for any like a help you need and like anything that you feel is wrong, and then yeah, we'll go from there.
Well, that's good that it like opened
that conversation
up, because it can be a really awkward thing to begin with.
Yeah.
Well, like, did you have any more embarrassing period stories afterwards? I'm sure I've had like 5.
Thinking about it, I guess like this is embarrassing for me just in my space, I always have this. I wake up with a stain every time I get in my period.
Yeah.
And like I've stained so many mattresses, and it's so embarrassing because if I have to sell them or just get rid of them, people are like, "What is that thing?" And I'm like, you know what? It's a period stain. Gotta be real.
I'm going to be honest with you. It happens to like 50% of the population. This is a period stain. Get over it.
Exactly.
So much worse has been put on a mattress. Like
Truly.
Well, yeah. What like? So the products that you first started using were like pads, tampons, that kind of thing. Did you ever hear about kind of alternatives to pads and tampons in India? Like, was that kind of stuff?
Interestingly, tampons were not that big a thing in India. I moved to Australia when I was 14, I think. And it was after that when I was like, tampons, diva cups, period underwear, so many things. But yeah, I know a bit about period products, but I usually just use pads.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that a comfort thing. Like when you first start, you know, getting your period and stuff, you go to what you know, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. I think what you're introduced to in the beginning is what kind of, again, becomes your comfort thing. And then... Yeah,
so true. Well, what advice would you have given your younger self?
Giving an advice... Oh, well, I guess I would have just said what I would say to my younger self about a lot of things would be, it's not that big of a deal as you think it is. But also I would say, another thing that I would say would be that it shouldn't be that embarrassing. Like, periods are such a normal thing about like your body, and they can become such a big part of womanhood for people, like for women, and just embracing that and celebrating it, because literally it's the reason we're all here. So not being embarrassed of that, and not being so ashamed of talking about it, or having a stain and like being in front of boys or anything like that. Just celebrating what it is. And
absolutely. Well, it's amazing that you and your friends could have that kind of like support network. When you said that they all followed you around, I was like, yes, it's a little clan of like people running to the toilet.
Little girls just going.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's so sweet. Well, what was I going to say? Did you have you ever spoken to like your father, or like, do you have brothers?
I don't. I have a sister, and as we've grown up, the conversation about periods has become more normal than it was when we were growing up. Like, I think when I was younger, I was so scared to be in front of my parents and be like, hey, I just got my period. I would go to my mum and be like, Mum, I just got my period. But now it's kind of just like, hey, I have my period right now, I'm cranky.
Like more of an open conversation. Yeah, with both your parents.
Yeah. Just like if I'm being really moody that day and I'm like, Dad, it's because I'm on my period, and he's like, oh, okay, here we go.
Excuses. No, I think it is like a weird thing to start speaking to, I mean, your father or like anybody who hasn't gone through it before, because they don't quite understand. I remember the first time I asked my dad to buy me pads and I was like, I just really, really need them. And he was like, it's fine. And I just wasn't expecting that response.
Yeah. And like, I think one funny thing is that whenever I've told my dad to buy pads or something, it's always like I get a call and it's like, which ones? There's so many.
They really have no clue.
They don't. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be hard to explain over phone. Next time I'll show you which ones. But yeah.
Just going back quickly to when you were talking about like the mattress and like waking up with a stain.
Yeah.
Is this like even when you've started your period, like you're already like in the process of?
I think it's like the first or second night.
Yeah.
It's just like the flow is really heavy.
I can't help it. This is how it is.
Yeah.
So you've got to pat in and stuff like that. Yeah. It's so hard to, like, you don't want to be waking up every 2 hours to be changing
really
a pad.
Don't.
Yeah, no. Have you ever, like, would you wear period underwear? Like, would you have suggested that to yourself as a child, like knowing about those kinds of alternatives and stuff like that?
Probably not as a child, but now I'm so much more open to different stuff.
Yeah.
Like, even diva cups and period underwear, all of that, I think they're so much more sustainable than pads and tampons. Like pads and tampons create so much waste. And to help not do that for the rest of my life or the rest of the time that I do, I'm gonna get periods.
That's so true. It's gonna keep happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Well, do you think there's a different conversation now amongst your peers? Like, do you think the conversation has evolved? Because it seems like you and your friends were really open about it, and you described being angry as if it was a competition with your friend. Did you move past those kinds of feelings of comparison, I guess, and stuff like that?
Yeah, very quickly.
Yeah.
I think it was just a very teen thing. It was just like everyone was getting their periods for the first time, and it was like a first experience. And I guess I just wanted to have that experience and not knowing what it was going to be like going into it. And I guess it was just that, and then afterwards it became a very normal routine thing. Like, it wasn't that much of a, like, when everyone had their first periods, everyone was just like, okay, now this becomes the norm. So
you're like, I wish I could go back.
Yeah. Truly.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing and telling us the story and everything like that, and opening up.
Oh, of course.
There you go. Thank you.